No price talk and no Lambos. This is not another crypto podcast. Welcome to Ignition. I'm your host, Gillian Goetze, and each week we will be looking at the problems solved by blockchain. I'll be going deep with the people building the apps and communities which are changing the world around us. Hello and welcome to the show with me, Gillian Goetze. Now today my guest is Linda Goetze, which is a German spelling, German surname, so it's Goetze, who is the president and CEO of the Blockchain Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the show, Linda.
Thank you so much, Gillian.
Well, we were talking yesterday, and I about 3 times during our conversation, I said, my goodness, Linda, you have so many good ideas and you have such good thoughts. And I said, I'm going to capture this. I'm going to capture our conversation for posterity. So here we are again today. And I thank you so much for your time. So first of all, maybe we could start off with what you're doing, your mission in the Blockchain Chamber of Commerce, what it is, what you're doing with it, and what you hope to achieve.
Absolutely. And thank you for this opportunity. It was a lot of fun to talk with you, and you were very kind in your comments. But it's been a journey that started for me in 2012, and that was personally seeing the potential of Bitcoin and blockchain and buying into that. And I know that there's not many people that have a timeline that goes back that far, and that was highlighted when I attended the very first meeting of the Blockchain Chamber of Commerce. And it was ideated by Abraham Xiong. He's the one that actually established the chamber initially. I met with their core team at that first meeting, and I was the last one with my hand standing, when they were counting down the years of how many years people had been engaged in blockchain and cryptocurrency. So that began a fantastic relationship where I became a founding member, was asked to be CIO, and then president and CEO of the chamber. And the progression of time that has elapsed has allowed us as an organization to build up to 23 chapters that I just visited Dubai and Athens, where we have 2 phenomenal presidents leading the chapters there. And it's wonderful to be able to connect with and serve the community. The mandate of the Blockchain Chamber of Commerce is to raise awareness, facilitate adoption, and inspire advocacy. And that's for commerce, consumers, people building careers in blockchain. So we have a very wide mandate. And one of the ways that we've sought to meet it is through our initiative with the blockchain ecosystem.io platform. And it's like a social media mega platform where you don't have a strange entity owning your data and making money off of it where you see nothing. This is actually a platform that rewards the community, where you retain your privacy and you have the opportunity to benefit from all of the aspects of engagement that you have, including getting a huge SEO boost, not just one high quality backlink. If you get a microsite or you set up as an experienced contributor on the site, you actually can get dozens of high quality backlinks, which we believe will help to showcase the blockchain community to people coming and looking for blockchain solutions. So I can't go into explain everything about that platform right now, but it's definitely an initiative that I'm excited about rolling forward through the Chamber and the Blockchain Association, which is a 501c3 sister organization that we also have that's focused on education. And hopefully I'll get a chance to share some of the fun things that we're doing, not only educating adults, but actually educating young children. My children are 11, and they're the original crypto kids. They have never known a day on this planet that did not have the blockchain available.
Wow.
So, and they're the first generation that can say that. They're 11. It's mind blowing how fast time has passed, but they represent the maturation of the blockchain ecosystem. And I'm just thankful to be a part of it and have the opportunity to help provide supports to the community, create connections globally, and really facilitate adoption in every way I can personally, and in every way I can support through the Chamber and the association.
And when you were in Dubai and Atlanta, was that to meet the different chapters? Or were you at conferences, or how did that come about?
Yeah, no, Dubai. I was speaking at a conference there. I had a keynote, but also it was a fantastic opportunity to present Yogesh Raja, who is our president there, to the community. And so that was when he got a huge ovation when I announced his presidency. It was just really neat. He is a phenomenal gentleman in his own right. He leads the MENA region for a multi-billion-dollar company in their blockchain and cutting edge technology implementations. So he's a rock star in his own right, but to have him connected with the chamber and supporting the initiatives that we have there in Dubai was really special. And also in Athens, Greece, the same thing with Demetrius. And yeah, it's both of those timing actually was wonderful because Decentralized is a great conference that's held in Athens. It's actually going to be in Cyprus next year, but with the University of Nicosia, or tell me, is it Nicosia or Nicosia?
I think it's Nicosia. I think
I've heard it. It's kind of funny because I've heard it multiple ways and I haven't patterned. But Nicosia is, I think that's the correct one as well. But
it's the first university to have a blockchain course.
Yes. Yeah. So we're excited to be collaborating with them and looking at having a memorandum of understanding established and really delineating how we can best support each other's efforts, because we're very much aligned, because raising awareness and facilitating adoption is right there in both of our mandates. So
that's cool. That brings you rather sweetly, actually, on to the next point. Is you're based in Atlanta and have recent involvement with Ambassador Andrew Young, who was responsible for securing the Olympic location in Atlanta as opposed to Athens on the centenary of the Olympics.
Yes, that was kind of a big deal. Yeah, I didn't tell that story much while I was in Athens. But
keep that one under your hat.
Yeah, but
Ambassador Andrew Young.
Yeah, a wonderful gentleman, and he actually reached out to the chamber. We incidentally, the gentleman who was impactful in the greater enterprise world of Atlanta back during the civil rights movement was the grandfather of a very good friend of mine. And actually, when there was the civil rights movement, it could have died in Atlanta and not been what it was had it not been for a consortia coming together that was led by this gentleman. And I don't want to name big companies or whatever, but I mean, history speaks for itself. And we have an opportunity that came to the chamber because of that relationship over all these years. A grandson is saying, hey, if you're interested in blockchain, the Blockchain Chamber of Commerce is where you should connect. And the ambassador reached out to me, had an amazing conversation with him, just one-on-one. And then he invited a group of the core team of the chamber to a luncheon and asked about, how does blockchain play a role in these initiatives that I have with my foundation. And it's been an interesting progression of really helping educate him and the team at his foundation about blockchain. And there's several major initiatives. I hope we're able to give some good news about how they're going to be implementing blockchain. So, yeah, it's phenomenal. And one of the really interesting things that he did for me is he put a piece of history into perspective for me that I hadn't had before when it comes to the history of money. And as you know, cryptocurrencies have been an aspect of I call them a piece of the financial services vertical, which is one of 12 verticals that we highlight as the chamber. But he told the story about Bretton Woods and when the dollar was depegged from gold. And it is phenomenal. I'm going to have to just see if I can pull that video up, because it was just very calmly. He said, this is just how it was. And to know that the way value is transferred globally shifted with anyway, you'll have to watch the video. It's still, when I think about it, it blows my mind.
If technology works, we're going to play it now.
They put me on the banking committee because banking, we were building MARTA. and I wanted to be on the mass transit committee. There was no mass transit committee. They said, but mass transit would probably come under urban affairs, and urban affairs is under banking. Why don't you go on the banking committee and you can start a subcommittee on mass transit, which we did. You have to serve in two other subcommittees. So I chose international finance. And in my first meeting, Paul Volcker, Arthur Burns was Federal Reserve, and George Shultz was the Secretary of Treasury. And they came to tell us that they were ending the Bretton Woods agreements. Well, I didn't know what that was, never heard of it before, but I finally found out that in 1944, they tied all the world's currencies to the dollar, and the dollar was tied to gold. Right. So from 1944 to 1973, the world had a stable economic platform, and almost every country grew between 3 and 6% during that period. Developing countries, Europe, the U.S., it was a growth period under a stable financial regime. They came to break it up, and nobody asked any questions. And I was young enough and ignorant enough to say, look, I don't know what's going on here, but it seems to me that if the dollar isn't tied to something, people are going to play politics with our currency. And Arthur Burns said, young man, you'll soon learn that the dollar doesn't need you to defend it. That shut me up. Except that years later, I read a book by Paul Volcker where he admitted that the three of them had not even discussed it before they came to do it. Somebody had sent them there to end the Bretton Woods agreements. And because of impeachment, there was never a discussion of it anywhere in the Congress. It happened, it changed the world, but what it did for me was watching the price of oil. Oil was $2.50 a barrel when that occurred. I think it was September '73. And by the end of the year, it was $15 a barrel. By the end of the next year, it got up to $150 a barrel from $250. And so it seemed to me that people were playing games. They took gold out of the driver's seat, and oil took over, deciding who was wealthy.
It still is today.
And I must confess to be fascinated by that area too. The Bretton Woods was so interesting, where all the gold was given to Fort Knox, and then Nixon depegging the dollar in '71, I think it was, because of the Vietnam War, and he couldn't raise any more taxes, and he had to do some quantitative easing of his own, and it's a phenomenal thing. But you mentioned yesterday a term. You said before you worked and your work had a value, and there was like an equation there that doesn't exist anymore.
Right. So the value of our hour of work should equate X number of whatever our fiat currency is, right? And it should be stable over time. So if you save your money when you're in retirement and you're wanting to benefit from your labors, it's available to support you, right? We unfortunately currently have a system that is unbelievably open to hyperinflation because of the games that are played, not just in the US at a national level, and I hate to say even national because I don't want to get into a whole, explanation of the history of the money in the US, but what we have globally is a fractional reserve banking approach that allows for 10% actually being real money and being lent against at basically 10x. So you have fractional reserve banking. How much history do you want me to go into? Like, do you want me to talk about what we just had with Basel III in the end of February? And
that was interesting.
Okay. I don't want to like, just dive into the weeds too much, but we've had this progression where money has inflated over time, and it hasn't been really visible to the marketplace as hyperinflation because of how it's been managed. And we had gold actually become available to also be fractionally reserve banked against, where the banks could 10x loan against the gold that they had in their coffers. That just kind of kicked the can down the road a little bit. Not many people are aware of what happened where we had a $300 billion bailout here in the US just in the last couple of months. 2008 was an $800 billion bailout. So, the proximity that we have, to what was devastating in 2008 and where we're potentially headed with a massive bond bubble, I don't believe that most people can even begin to understand the scale that this has been done at. And I had just a personal experience at the chamber where someone was offering to sell a company that had a $3.5 million valuation, but that held a $35 million bond. And I'm like, how is this possible? But I had a friend who'd shared with me what they were actually doing for very wealthy clients and what they were actually doing for themselves, which was coming to a bank with, say, for an example, $100,000, and then getting $1 million bond, going to another bank and getting a loan against that $1 million of $500,000. So they created for themselves a value of $400,000 out of basically thin air. The first bank was happy because they had $100,000 they'd never had before, and the bond that they issued really had no need to be backed by anything real on their side. So they were happy. The secondary bank was happy because now they had $1 million bond that they could put against their books and say was a value that they could now loan against again. So if they didn't get repaid,
and we're making magic money out of the air.
And who loses is that person who worked hard for their money, who felt like there was a value for their time that was represented by this amount of fiat, and that when they needed it later on in life, whether it's 5 minutes, 5 years, 50 years from now, that it would have value. And the way this is being done globally, we are devaluing our currency in such a way that it's just going to take one little shift, one bank that has a serious issue that can't be covered quickly enough. We're going to have a cascade of defaults, and the bond bubble will burst. So that when I look at that problem, and I think, what can we do to help prepare for that? How can we solve for that as much in advance as possible to give people a real place to store their value? That's why I'm so passionately engaged. That's why we're working with, even kids at the middle school and high school level, to help them understand the history of money, the value of their time, how to store value, how to have a diversification in their little portfolios as kids. They can be diversified.
And tell me this project that you're doing with these kids. This is an amazing project. Talk to them about money.
Yeah. So Kamala is a wonderful woman that has connected with the chamber. She's been personally working since her son was in middle school and wasn't getting what she felt were appropriate opportunities. She developed a debate and coding program and has been delivering it in multiple schools here in Georgia. And the debate side, it was really neat. She invited me to several of her classes, and I had the opportunity to share with her students about the history of money. I used a book that is written by the Bitcoin rabbi, just a brilliant book. I actually don't have it with me right this second, but it was a fun story to read and to have the kids respond to. And I had sent previous to coming a link for the rap battle, the Satoshi versus Hamilton, that guy. And it was just fun. It was fun hearing their questions. It was fun engaging. I showed them the video of Ambassador Young speaking about the Bretton Woods, and it was just to be able to have them recognize that there's an alternative to what they've always known. And they are actually debating this weekend. It's the debate topic is, on balance, decentralized currency is beneficial to the U.S. economy. And they're going to be coming at it from both sides. It's not something that is an adult feeding them their own opinions, right? It's them going out and researching, seeing what's already been implemented, seeing what's available to them to better understand what's happening with cryptocurrencies. And these are kids that they had heard of Bitcoin, but they hadn't thought about Bitcoin in relation to their own lives or the history of value transfer. So it's going to be exciting. We've actually videoed some of their prep time. We're going to be videoing the actual debates, and then they're going to be doing speech presentations that I'm just excited to not only, I mean, it's not just kids getting their hands in and actually better understanding what's happening globally. It's them going to their parents and talking about it, right? So this is how we're looking to continue the education around blockchain and cryptocurrencies.
You know why that's so powerful? We have a scheme here in Ireland called the Green School Scheme. It was introduced 20 years ago, where kids do a program to make the school green. So whether it's recycling water and plastic, and maybe it could be older than 20 years. And what's very clever about it was the children learn and they tell the parents. Or it's like children are now told nowadays about smoking. So right. No child comes home, and they go back and they pester the poor old parents who are still addicted to the fags. Tell the children, let the children think about it, and then come home and tell the parents. And that's a very, very smart way of educating the population. And I'm going to steal that so badly.
No, please. We want it to be used worldwide. We want kids doing their own research, engaging in better understanding the transfer of value, to be the ones, because this is their world that we are creating. That the advent of Bitcoin started an option, a way to diversify, a opportunity to have a safe store of value where it can't arbitrarily be inflated. And we're going to have to protect against that to a certain extent as well in the cryptocurrency markets, because the traditional markets are bringing in the same practices into the blockchain space, into cryptocurrency. But the beauty that we have is that the public blockchains have code that does not permit there to be a explosion of number of those tokens. Not all blockchains are like that. The Bitcoin blockchain is obviously the first and the most prime example, where the code keeps the number of Bitcoin to 21 million. And limited supply and potentially limitless demand grows value over time. And that's just a basic, I mean, if we can just help our kids understand that, right? Just that tiny little, fundamental, we've done a service. So yeah, it's just a little piece, but I think it's a powerful piece, and something that hopefully will positively impact lives when and if we have hyperinflation, and in more countries than are already experiencing it.
Yeah, amazing. So, Linda, last words. Well, how would you like to leave our listeners, our audience, to?
Getting to say last words before you're dead, Oh, wow. No, I guess two takeaways that I'd like to leave you with. One, blockchainecosystem.io. That platform was built to serve the community. get on it, take advantage of it, use it to support your own projects, yourself as an individual expert. I hate to use the word expert, experienced contributor to the ecosystem, take that platform and maximize its value. I hope everyone listening takes that invitation and acts on it. The other thing is I always like to talk about Bloom in the Dark. And it started as a book 4 years ago that my sister wrote, and it was stories, poems, and letters of women who have been victimized and who have become ex-victims. And it's powerful. It's gone on to be a TV series, aired in 204 countries, now translated into multiple languages. She also has another series that's just come out that has even greater distribution. And so we, as humanity, have experienced victimization. And it's not just about women. The first book focused on women, but the series has men, and we're just humans. And in our human experience, many of us have experienced victimization. And knowing that there's hope and healing is powerful. Knowing that you can access resources, connect with people that maybe have had it worse than you, and have come out of that to a better place. It just can help us support each other as a community. So that's something I always like to share, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that, Jillian. Thank you.
And where can people find information on that?
bloominthedark.org. Yeah. And Bloom Today is the name of the TV show. And there's another name that I'm not remembering, but I'm sure you can access it through those too.
Brilliant. Well, Linda, thank you so much for your time today. We've been listening and talking with Linda Goetze, who's the president and CEO of the Blockchain Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jillian.